Did I give you a long one?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I've started the recorder.
This one, right?
And
Get me in trouble.
this one,
Be in a lot of trouble.
version 2 with.
Gotcha.
And I've put it in there 2 different ways.
Mike was gonna be here.
Strike out one.
Did you speak with him?
So Josh's son is selling birdhouses that he needs to sell.
Usually he calls me and tells me he's not doing it.
Hey, Abby.
Hello.
They're $20.
You know, you're everywhere.
I believe we just got a call.
Okay, cool.
He will buy 2 cans of dog food and donate to the animal shelter.
I have to.
I'm letting you know, Josh.
Don't start with the rezone, because I haven't seen it.
Rezone.
So Josh is supposed to be here, and then Mike Zucker's supposed to be here.
I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names.
Well, they usually call and tell me when they're not going to be here.
Yeah,
And I have not heard anything, so.
We have 4.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
I just heard a door shut.
Hey,
Wrong one.
It's just James.
It's just names.
Great.
Not good.
Doing well. Just James. Hi. Just
James, since you're here, I'll let you be the one to read the rezone. How about that?
read the which?
Rezone.
It's 6:31. We're gonna bring this meeting of the Marion City Planning Commission to order. Will the clerk please take roll?
Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Dunstan?
Here.
Mr. Daniels? Miss Russell?
Okay.
Miss Pullins? Mr. Zucker? Mayor Collins? Director Bodine?
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first item on the agenda is old business. It's a proposal to amend Marion City zoning code that covers solar energy systems. I believe we left off that we're gonna get a little bit more definition, correct?
Right. What I did at the last meeting, I'm gonna just refresh for it, because not everybody is all here, but on the green sheet here, we at first started to speak kind of generally about solar regulations, kind of going from real strict to moderate to least restrictive. So when it came to accessory permitted uses, and again, I guess I'll back up, the solar fields that are under 50 megawatts can be regulated by the city. Anything above the 50 and above, I guess, goes to the Ohio Power Siting. So we really don't need to worry about making regulations for really big ones. And then, make sure there's not Josh texting, but I have the last.
Just to put this in perspective, the one that's going up north of Marion Williamsport is 100 megawatts. Is that correct?
And that was 1,000 acres.
Yeah.
So we might think that, let's see, like, 100 acres equals, who said that?
100 acres equals 100?
Yeah, okay, I was doing blank on how many megawatts.
No,
Yeah.
10 megawatts.
10, yeah, okay, there we go, 10. So, so that being said, we broke it down into accessory uses versus principal permitted uses. So, an accessory use is something like if you were looking at your house, that's the principal use, your accessory use is your garage. Same goes for if we're having commercial uses and maybe the solar field is accessory to this, to the business or to a house. So we started out with saying that most strict would be just roof mounted only and not really on the ground, or we could do roof and ground mounted, but maybe limit them in acreage if it were on a commercial or industrial use. And then roof and ground mounted, no limit. Would be the least restrictive. At the end of the last meeting, I think we were all leaning toward, we wanted them, roof or ground mounted, and maybe make sure that we're on a commercial one, somehow limiting it. So we had come up with a language at that time, and this is one of the things I've put in here, 2 different versions of limiting. So if you look at this is what that ordinance would look like, and the language that would actually be in the zoning code. So on the second page of it, I guess first of all, it's saying that, it's allowed in any district. And we talk about, the first section talks about roof mounted, and then it goes on a flat roof, etc. Ground mounted. So it's the ground mounted, again, talks about it shall not, and this is point B, ground mounted solar energy systems. 1, shall not exceed the maximum height allowed for the accessory structures in that zoning district. They shall not be located in the front yard, because I think we're all pretty comfortable we do really want them in the front yard. Minimum setback would be equivalent to the required setbacks for the accessory buildings in whichever district it is. Area covered by the ground-mounted solar system shall not be included in lot coverage or impervious surface calculations if the ground beneath it remains permeable. So if there's grass underneath it, we don't have to calculate that into stormwater runoff, etc. And then on non-residential properties, point number 5, this is when I'm kind of curious which way you guys think we should go with this. And we were having a little discussion with Josh Stanos early this morning as well. So I'm going to check my phone in a minute, see if that beep was him. But no ground-mounted solar energy system on a non-residential property. We had originally written may exceed 1/2 of the area of the building footprint of the principal use on the lot or parcel. However, any system co-located with the above required parking shall not be counted toward the total allowable area. An accessory use, this one we talked about this morning, Ken and I. An accessory use solar energy system may be located on a lot adjacent to or directly across an alley or street from the principal use if said lot is in the same ownership as the principal lot, and only if that lot is zoned commercial or industrial. So the 2 main things here that I want us to kind of focus on are, do we think it's better to regulate or set a maximum in terms of acreage, or half the size of the building, whatever it is. The second point is, we were going through different industrial areas. I do have a map for that as well, for some examples. Bear with me a minute. Ken, do you want to pass these out? This 2-sided, so one of them is down on,
This would be new core.
oh, okay, Nucor steel.
This would be an example of new core steel, and,
And would you have any more of that information?
Mhm.
Exactly.
You can?
This is
so the lot outlined in blue is new core,
And I'll get
and it's across
kind
the
of our
street.
chart on.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yep.
So in the example, if they wanted to have the solar panels across the street, they could, the way she's got it worded, because of the fact that it's zoned industrial. But then if you flip this over,
Yeah.
If you flip this over, there's other properties Newport has on Evans Road. And that's south of Newport. They bought properties on the north side, that's in blue, highlighted in blue. And, okay, same ownership, but it's zoned residential, and there's still houses there. So you wouldn't want them to have it there, in my opinion, when there's houses across the street, unless they buy up the whole street, and you and city council rezone it for, industrial. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
So the blue is the lots Nucor owns?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
that's one ownership, yeah.
This right here is Nucor.
Yep.
Like the whole thing is
It's
Nucor.
not the
It's
whole
not
thing
these.
they own, it's a separate parcel. That's
No.
tax parcel.
So everything that says I-2, this right here, that is Nucor Steel.
Yeah.
And then also, if you flip the
That,
other
but then they
side,
own these two little parcels.
they also own these.
Right.
So, yeah, they own, and
I'm just
that's where.
clarifying for this side, because you said this is Nucor, like that's way too small to be Nucor.
Right, no, correct.
So-
So what we're getting at is normally an accessory use has to be on the same lot as the principal use. So in the zoning code, your garage has to be on your lot, or if you have adjoining lots, then you can have it, but you can't have your garage, at least without a variance, across the street on a lot from your house. So, and the same would be for the solar, for everybody, the way it's written, she's written it, you have to have it on your lot, but for commercial and industrial, since obviously they
tend to own a lot more property.
you have a lot more properties on the tax card, and sometimes across the street, they'll have parking, or other buildings, that are allowed. This is an example where the main Newport plant is on one side of the street, one side, in the case of Cheney, the one lot, and then they own other lots down here too, that's not the only, but that's a separate tax card, would be across the street, and then Evans would be in back of their property, but not zoned industrial.
So that's why we thought we needed to make allowances for something beyond just the actual parcel that has the structure on
So you gotta be careful with these industries in town, because a lot of them are close to houses.
Does anybody know how many acres Nucor sits on?
It's a lot. I mean, yeah, what we're showing here is only part of their facility on these maps, is only
Right.
part, and years ago, city planning and council, when I was involved with it, vacated a large part of Cheney Avenue, so it could be on both sides of the street.
I'm wondering if you're thinking the same thing I am. Have they got enough land there to put in a
Well,
utility grade solar farm?
If you look at Nucor and you use Nucor and this, what you gave us as the example, so say that, and I don't know this, but say Nucor is sitting on 50 acres, right? If you did the first portion, that means they could put 25 acres worth of solar farms.
That's what we
Here.
thinking, that
So
we might want to put a cap.
but say that would only really be justifiable language for, say, Nucor, maybe Whirlpool, and the depot. Because nothing else industrial in Marion that I can think of is going to be that many acres. Like, you're not gonna come close, really.
I was about to say Whirlpool owns that large lot between the
So-
factory and the warehouse now.
Well, the industrial park as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm
Yeah,
all
several
for
acres
the
out
10
there.
acres cap,
Already
I don't have a
on that.
problem with that. But I'm saying, just to play the other side of it, if you did half of their footprint, right?
Yeah. Just like the
There's
footprint
gonna
of
be
all
some
the-
very, very large, at least 4
Yeah.
places in Marion that are gonna get double-digit acres worth of solar farms, if they wanted it, and I'm not even saying they would, they may say, I don't want that crap over
But
here.
it's not really, but it's because it's accessory use, it has to be primarily for them.
Right.
That's
Yes,
the
that's
whole
the
key
thing.
thing here, with all, it has to be for,
Only
it's
for
not a
them.
utility, facility like, on the north side of Marion Williamsport, or what was proposed in
Right, so,
Pleasant, where they're selling everything. It's primarily for them, just
In-
like the windmills are primarily for.
I was gonna ask, like, what's,
understanding that, I mean, also, I didn't mean to cut you off. If Whirlpool is a great example, they're already doing wind power, and now if we tell them they could have half of their footprint as solar power, there's not a lot of, you know, in it for them to stay on the power grid that we have. So they could put their own solar farm up, use their wind power, and theoretically go off of the power grid for Marion completely.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, they're not in the city, they're in the township.
Right, but still, just as an example.
Just as an example.
Industry.
they're not
But-
gonna annex? I would love them to.
just saying, like, and it's only going to take one of the big boys to do it before the rest of them realize, like, oh wait, I can do that as well. So Nucor, which is in the city, as soon as they realize that this is a thing that they can do, and Whirlpool's already done it and got no pushback because they're within the code, there's nothing really keeping them from Nucor from doing it. So I don't have a problem with the cap. I just want to make sure that we are not doing things reactively because we're concerned that 3 or 4 companies may do something. And so because 3 or 4 companies may do something, we limit the ability of other companies to do
Right.
things.
Well, I guess conversely, if we went with if we limited it to the 1.5 times the area of your building footprint, if you had a small building but used a lot of energy, what if half the size of your footprint wouldn't get you enough energy to make it worth doing it? You know, I guess could be potentially be limiting them. Whereas if we said, how about an acreage, you know, whatever. James?
How are we gonna enforce this code, no matter what we get? So, like, yeah,
Is the whole
You're-
reason this is a
oh.
discussion is because of visual reasons?
yeah, mostly.
Well, I
Some
think
of it.
the intent was to let people be, you know, not to ban solar altogether, because I think there's a feeling, at least on council and others, that any, you know, residents may want to have it. Any business, it may help them remain competitive if they can lower their energy cost. We knew, you know, it seemed as though on city council, they wanted to ban, you know, utility scale. So that's why we're kind of just focusing on accessory, but how, you know, as we're going to say, accessory can still get kind of large. So how large is too large, or do we care if it's too large? Again,
I just don't want to get it to a point where, I don't know if this is true or not, but the whole solar farm up north of town, they got 100 megawatts, but none of that's going to us.
Right,
I don't want to create that situation. If we allow this, I want it to be an improvement for either said business
Or the
or the community.
right,
Well, what you've got written would ban utility ones from the city.
right. It would only be if it was benefiting
Accessory, the
use.
primary user is the company.
So if it's Nucor, or if it's my house, or whatever.
Is this addressing at all ArcelorMittals?
That's another one. They're looking at it. There's another steel
They'd be allowed
rolling
to do it
energy.
in this case too, because.
But I heard that they might want to sell some of that power off,
I think that's.
because that
just
30-acre
beyond
piece
peak
a-
time.
across the street from them, I mean,
I think that as long as it's for them, and that's the thing, it has to be accessory for them. You may get, just even on my house, and I do have solar panels, if we're using it all, our bill goes to zero. If we use, you know, if we're generating more than we are using, it reverses back into the system. So in essence, we're selling it, we're not like making money, but we're earning a credit or something.
Net-
So-
let's just
Net metering.
let's just hypothetically say a business out at Kellogg Parkway
Mhm.
does the math and figures out, hey, if we buy this empty lot next to us, and with these rules, we can put a solar farm and eventually make our money back. And therefore,
So the utility companies actually regulate against that too, because, like if you, like, when we were looking at it just for our house, it's 120% of your projected use that you're allowed to put on there. And you don't get money, they don't, if you're not a utility provider, they're not gonna pay you for the electricity, they'll only give you a credit on your bill. So Arsenal or Midel or, Nucor, anyone, they can't, they can only offset their own energy costs and, bully if they make more than they need to use and the, power company gets some, free energy that they never get bill credit back for, but there's always gonna be a give and take with the grid because the sun doesn't always shine.
It'll take decades for them to get their money back.
I know that, but, but at the same time, I don't want lots that are empty right now, ready for new jobs to come into town,
Turning into
turning
solar farms.
into,
Right, if you want to have.
Speculative, type of a thing, right. If it helps ArcelorMittal stay in town and, just like the,
well, that's a wetland over there, so it doesn't really matter. But I guess just be careful of how much you allow, because that's a
Right.
30-acre parcel, I believe.
Right.
right,
Yeah,
that's
what-
why I
what
wonder
the-
if it might be easier to pick a acreage,
So
five,
if you said 10,
5, 10,
10
6,
acres.
whatever. So that way you know
I would be
you're not-
fine with 10, but then we gotta think about what that looks like within the city. Even though Kellogg Parkway's in the city, it's not
Yeah.
what we would normally look
Right, it is
as a
not.
city. So if we talk about Nucor, quite honestly, Nucor is hidden because of how they closed all those streets over there.
Right.
When I was younger, my dad worked at Power Shovel there, where all those streets were open, and right now it's hidden. So quite frankly, most of that, especially where you're pointing at, nobody ever goes down there.
Mhm.
so that's why it's important that it be zoned industrial or commercial.
Agreed.
Because then if the residents are near there, say, well, I don't want to look at it, well, you could have a factory there.
Right,
It's
yes.
zoned commercial, residential, commercial. That's why the example I gave for Nucor, the difference between Evans Road, which has houses across the street, and that's zoned residential versus Cheney Avenue, which, so that's where the key thing there is.
Is the point now is that we don't have anything written up about this period?
Right, we don't have any,
Okay.
So,
I guess, sorry, I just wanted to,
No, go ahead.
put a period, like, the only point that I was trying to make is that the scenario where someone's creating a backdoor solar plant to pocket, like, that the power companies don't, allow that to begin with. So you can only, there's no profit incentive to make a huge amount more than you would ever actually use for your business, unless you're just being charitable to the environment or whatever. There's no one's going to make money by, even if they allowed it, by building a backdoor solar farm.
Does anything stop Nucor from building turbines like Whirlpool?
right now.
In our code, no.
We don't have turbines as a listed use, so.
Because turbines create 20% of Whirlpool's power now, those three.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that would be
because
the
when
next thing we have to
the code
address.
was written, turbines weren't a thing. So they didn't even ever consider that anybody would ever.
I feel like
I'm with you.
It
It's
doesn't
just-
look out of place out there, but if it was inside the city,
Yeah, I mean, if Nucor put one, even as off limits as Nucor is, if they put 3 turbines up, people are losing their minds because there's houses over there.
Right.
There's a neighborhood there. I mean, we just gave away a whole alley to a guy who may or may not be doing chicken wings. So that's this area. So
This is, we can't
So,
say what's happening. It's big though.
So I agree that we should probably put an actual number, like a limit number, not like a percentage, and this
Right.
math theory may be able to get you some stuff. It should be a number, like you can't go past this. My bigger concern than all of that is if Nucor puts this where it is, that means they gotta run their electrical wiring across the street to get it to Newport. And so if we allow people to run it through driveways and alleys and streets that with the reasoning that they own the property on the other side of the street,
They'll have to have either easements or rights of way.
Newport will do it so nothing happens to their stuff. Not everybody will do that. Not everybody will do it so nothing happens to their stuff. Somebody will do it where they run it through trees. Or somebody will do it where they actually dig a trench on their own and run it.
Well, you gotta get a permit to go in the city right away, to work in the city right away, right? And we're talking now, this is only for industrial and commercial, it's not for the homeowner. The homeowner's not gonna be able to.
Which I understand, which is a good point, and I understand. But there are industrial and commercial mom and pop companies that are gonna
do whatever they can to save a buck.
money. Now, back to James's point, just because we're in Ohio, it's going to take a long, the best you could hope for is you're going to reduce your bill for the foreseeable future. It's going to take a long time before you zero that bad boy out and then come to an even point, because we have a thing known as winter, which is there's no sun, and that does not help you. So,
There's the sun, you've got snow on your pants.
Believe it or not, talk to a solar expert in this, when we got sunny days in the winter, that's just as good on these solar panels as a 90-degree sunny day in the summer. Now, days are shorter, but
They still harness energy during the winter. My husband put up a solar field in Cary, and, I mean, this was years ago when it first went up, and, I mean, it was freezing outside, and it's still, I mean, it was warm for the guys working out there, so.
I just think that, I don't care about the residential people, if they wanna put it on the roof, whatever, like, that doesn't bother me.
I'm sorry, it's just the way you started your sentence.
Good
Lord.
I won't put it in the minutes like that, I promise.
But, oh, yeah, I get it now. But I think, is there a way that we can just write this in a way where we have to review any company that does this? Because how rampant is this gonna be?
I don't know.
How likely is CenMac gonna go say, we wanna build a little, thing? I cannot picture 20 companies going, we got code now, let's get solar panels.
I mean, it would
Why
be,
not review all those things with this board and city council
it would
to
be a
approve
permit
those
or
things?
conditional use.
Doing it as a conditional use
Yes.
in that district. Okay, right now we've got it as an accessory use in like the residential. What about?
So you're saying that if a business wants to put it on the roof, you would have to review
Or do you want it only if it's on?
No, I only like it when we start talking about acres of land and, crossing streets.
it? Okay.
So accessory up to a
okay.
certain amount of land and then conditional
What you
after
can do,
that.
Evelyn, then, is the same wording, but that for non-residential, if it's not on the lot,
If it's
not on their
across-
What do you
lot,
think?
then it would have to be reviewed by the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I mean, I'm
It feels like we have
I'm with you on
to,
this, but I'm a little bit even more strict.
Yeah, as you say.
I want it on the same side of the road as your building. I don't want you to be able to drag it across the street.
That's why it's not that.
So I'm not, I'm okay with it being conditional use. I'm okay with, if you want to do anything over a certain number of acres, you got to come here and run it past the board of the time and do it. But at the same time, so like in this example, Nucor would have to put it on the same side of the street as Nucor. You couldn't put it in this little blue box or any of these boxes back here, because I don't want you to have, maybe the box is behind because it looks like they're behind Nucor.
Yeah.
And just because
They'd have to
petty,
get it all
goes across the
rezoned.
railroad
how
tracks.
far does Cheney go down though now?
That's all.
It basically
It's
stops
divided
at
in half.
The example I gave is still open.
Is it? Is there
Their entrance.
any houses down there at all?
They own it all.
Yeah, no, yeah, if you turn on to Cheney and go all the way down Cheney, it dead ends into Newport property. But the issue is that the little neighborhoods that are there, all, if they don't empty onto the, what is that, the state route on the other side, they empty onto Cheney, which Newport knows, so they're fine with people coming in and going like that. But if you don't live back there, there's really, or work for Newport, there's really no reason for you to be back there at all.
Right.
I say last time I was back there, they had gates pulled across the road. You couldn't get through.
Yeah, I was riding my bike back there and they kicked me off.
Now, for accessory use, doesn't it already have to be on the same lot? Like when people wanted to put up a big old garage, the first thing we said was, well, or someone said, I don't know if it was accurate, but they were told they needed to conjoin their lots.
Yeah, that's why that, she's written that separate
Right,
provision in there
they would, I was
for
trying to.
commercial and
Vision
industrial.
for, yeah.
And if you're gonna make it a conditional for, let's say,
Yeah, I say Otis Street is
Industrial,
Otis Street still
commercial.
there?
who cares if it's on what side of the street? Because you're gonna get to review it
That's
and
true.
either way and see if it works.
Wonder if we vacated
I mean,
Otis Street.
I'm one of
Or just
4
close
people
it
voting, and what, to your point, I don't want anybody thinking they can do that.
Okay, so
That's-
you want to make them ask first
I don't,
on that sort of stuff.
I mean, and the answer will be no. I want them, like, I don't want you to consider doing that. Because one of the things which is, I think we're starting to see, is I want people to understand that when you come to the city planning, it will work with you. But if you put a 8-foot fence in your front yard, we're not gonna work with you. And you're gonna waste a whole lot of money when we tell you to take it down. So for this, I don't want you to think in your head, like, oh, I have the possibility with permission to put this across the street. Cheney's a one-off because basically Newport owns that street. So they'd be putting it across their own street. But there are other situations where people would try to run it through an alley
Responsible for paving that.
or
That's why we review it all.
whichever, but I think it will be easier to review if they understand when we put this here, it needs to be on the same side of the alley or the road or whichever that we're
On
doing.
the same lot or a touching lot, not
Yes.
across a street or alley,
Yes.
across a right of way.
The
Yes,
problem is, we got alleys all over the place, we got industries all over the place. You mentioned the dual rail park, what if US Giotto or Arcelor want to put something on the other side of the street?
I believe they do right now.
It can't be right up to the street, it's gotta be set back 30 foot.
Are you guys familiar with where ArcelorMittal's at? It's the first one on the left when you enter into the parkway.
Yeah.
You got that spur that comes right off, and it's that lot right to the north. It's basically a wetland, sometimes you see cowtails in there, whatever. For me personally, that doesn't feel as bad. That's unusable land if they want to put solar on it, but it violates across the street according to your guidelines.
Mhm.
So, in my opinion, I don't want to openly advertise that that's possible, but in a situation like that, I would think that's acceptable. Because of the area it's in,
in a wetlands.
and it's a wetlands. It's not usable land.
And look at Whirlpool, their windmills on the other side of Marion Williamsport Road.
Yep, they got 2 on one side.
So if you have it
Or no.
conditional use, you're gonna get you're the Board of Appeals too, you're gonna get it and.
They ever
you're gonna
put in
look at
that
each case
archery range
individually and
everybody
say if it makes sense or
I
not.
never heard about that one.
Yeah, they asked everybody if ODNR was looking for an idea or something. They should just.
One of my big
So
concerns
that's-
with this is I feel like I'm worried it's a fad and that something like one of these companies will put these things all over the place and then be like, sell their property and then they just sit there. and
Or abandon
get
them.
Destroyed and they're abandoned.
Right.
This
We
is
do have-
worst case scenario in my head. It's like Marion's just littered with these things. You know what I mean? It's where I've been coming from last week and this week. It's just, I don't know how you combat that, but that is where I'm at.
Why would you do that to me?
What?
Would you do that to me? And because it's Marion, they're not just gonna sit there. Somebody's gonna break them.
Yeah.
And what leaks out of those things is an EPA finding. So, like, it's not just like, hey, a panel broke. Like, they're full of liquid that's toxic. And when that leaks out into the ground, because it's just sitting there,
Is that a fact?
yes. That's part of the reason that they had they brought that up at was it Pleasant Township Solar?
Mm-hmm.
And they were there out at Tri Rivers. It's one of the things they brought up, is that they're not 100% successful putting those things in all the time. They drop them on the ground and they're filled with liquid. And when that liquid leaches into the ground, it's toxic. So they have to clean all that glass up.
Nah, I don't think that's.
They may-
A lot of the things that were said at hearing, I was
Gospel
there.
was the gospel.
A
It's
little bit
okay.
exaggerated.
It's okay.
It's gospel.
I was there too, and I was like, this
I'm
is
gonna-
amazing.
I'm
That
gonna
guy
Google
definitely
check
knows
you.
what he's talking about.
Well, I recall somebody saying that once these things were put in, that when you went and took them out, the land wasn't gonna be usable for at least 10 to 15 years, if not more.
No, I think.
They've done research at, they put them in the 90s, and I think it's Iowa University, and took them out after so many years, and they're farming them again.
Okay.
We do have in
Doesn't
here
mean
section
it's not toxic.
C under 1164, it's at the bottom of the second page, saying, a solar energy system shall be considered abandoned if it remains non-operational for a period of 6 consecutive months. And then if it's deemed abandoned, then the city, can have, or unsafe, they can make them repair it or remove it.
End-of-life management, proper disposal and recycling of solar panels are crucial to prevent environmental contamination and ensure responsible management of these materials.
So, I mean, this phone is toxic.
Yes.
This carpet is toxic. That's the thing. So you can say it's toxic, but it doesn't mean that if I break this phone, then we're all gonna die.
I guess that's not, I guess,
So you're not,
I usually don't side with Christian, but
No, I mean,
I'm gonna tell you, if you have, let's just say Pleasant, you have a whole farm field full of these things. And let's just say, like, I'm all for renewable energy, but these are some of the things I've never thought of. All of a sudden, you have 100 acres of this stuff abandoned. Kids go out from Pleasant, break them all, whatever school, break them. Is that how much work goes into reclaim that site to be able to farm on in the future? Like, how does that affect?
From the beginning, though, don't we require that for,
That's usually for utility scale.
yeah,
But you
which
have
is
to
not
have
what we're,
one.
yeah, which we're already outright banning.
so that's one.
I just think we should review it all.
So that's why you're not wanting to allow utility scale in Marion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but 10 acres in the city, what I saw written in there, that scares me.
I would invite somebody to find 10 acres in the city.
We found several 5-acre lots for hunting.
Yeah.
Well, there's
Well, we'll go out
about,
to the quarry.
there's
Just gotta
about-
get a job.
there's about 300 acres out at the industrial park.
No, I'm fine capping it and then saying that they gotta come before the review board and, to do whatever they need to do. I'm okay with that. I don't think there's any, not that the conversation is over, but I don't think there's any motion that needs to be made right now. There's just
No, I mean,
conversation to get something together that we could then act on. Correct, Evelyn? Just so I'm clear.
right, yeah, we're still kind of, so I'm trying to make sure, so for instance, on number 5, on the ground mounted, because that seems to be where we're mostly
Yeah.
ground mounted for non-residential. We want to just state in there right off the bat, that is a conditional permitted use, not an accessory use.
That's how I feel.
That way it
Yeah, I'm
has
fine
to
with
come to the board, regardless of, we could even maybe, I don't know if we you want to keep it the same way it is, or just make it
Isn't it?
You can still have an accessory use, it's just saying that it has to go to the board and be approved by the board.
Oh, that's true, right.
You don't have
We
to make
still
it a
want
principal permitted use, because then you're.
Right, that's right, we don't want it to be a principal.
So you
but
just have to say-
Still subject to the Board of Appeals, okay.
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
for
so-
clarification, they would, if they were approved here, they're good, right?
Yeah,
They wouldn't have to go before city council.
No, you're the final say when it comes to a conditional use.
but city
Awa.
council, you know, city council can come here and residents, and it's a public hearing, and
I'm just clarifying for myself, because sometimes we'll do stuff and it has to go to city council, and sometimes it doesn't.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I thought the same thing.
So I have to stand up and speak.
Go right ahead.
Come up to the podium.
You don't have to come up to the podium,
Ron Prater, 6th Ward City Council, 1122 One Avenue. I'm not a big fan of widespread solar panels spread out all over the place, like on large farms. And I really think there should be definite restrictions within the city limits. And I kind of like the idea of bringing it up, like Mr. Bodine stated, on individual cases and everything, because even in these solar cars, they got these electric cars, there's all kinds of elements in those things that are very toxic. And I mean, the people mining them, they got children in Africa, I mean, all these other things, but I just would agree with it. There should be definite restrictions within the city limits. I don't know what I'm saying, if it's right, but
No,
that's my opinion.
so right now there isn't, so that's why.
Yes, I think I agree with
That's right,
that. There
yeah.
should be.
My perspective is, like, I'm all open for renewable energy, like I said, but I don't want someone to catch us in a loophole by us writing a specific number down, and all of a sudden we go, that was not what we intended, but we can't do anything about it.
So do you want to not have do you think an acreage limit or any size, and just say it's subject to Board of Appeals, or?
I think the subject of Board of Appeals fixes it all, but
So you use your most strict, right, prohibited in all districts, but then have a, whatever.
Conditional
Josh
use.
in there or whatever.
Evelyn, when you talked to Josh earlier, did he give you the acreage?
He's the one that originally had given it to me, and I had forgotten about it until.
I wanna
I
leave the
looked at my
acreage in.
notes. And then he said he wasn't real firm one way or the other when we talked this morning, but he was the original one that would come up with saying, why don't we have a cap? You know, again, kind of to know that there was, that it wasn't gonna go beyond what people had in their mind. He said, well, I didn't think it was gonna be that, you know what I mean?
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Trouble with putting 10 acres, people are gonna think everyone's gonna be 10 acres.
Yeah.
But it might be only like 3 or 4 acres,
yeah, and that's why I just think we should review it. Like, if it makes sense for a small industrial company to have a little field 200 by 200 and they got their own solar panels, like, I don't see such a harm with that. But if you look at Nucor, it's such an odd situation because it's smack dab right in the middle of residential, and where that buffer is, if it's right where you put the first blue square, not too many people notice. But all of a sudden you're in that neighborhood to the south, then it's questionable. I just think it's such a variable thing that we should review it. I'm trying to look down in New Albany if any of that development down there has solar panels on there.
What is for them to come to the board, if someone wanted to do this, what would the fee be? Or is there a fee of any kind?
There is one, I think the variances are,
This is conditional use.
What, 350 is?
I think it's 350.
So if it's a resident, they'd be pissed, but if it's a business, it's not that big a deal.
Well, I think the residents,
Which we're not gonna make the residents do it, I'm just saying.
yeah, yeah.
Right, yeah.
So are you saying like accessory as long as it's rooftop or under a certain,
I think for residents, they're saying ground and rooftop is fine.
Yeah,
If it's within what they've discussed. If it's commercial, it's probably gonna be okay on their roof, but if they wanna put it on the ground, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah, if they're taking
Yeah.
up, if they're taking up land that's not being used for anything other than solar, then we should look at it.
Well, and I mean, I've seen some places out in California where they're putting these solar panels on top of their parking lots.
Yeah.
Cars are driving and parking under,
That makes sense to me.
and it makes sense to me too, but, I mean, do we want someone to, put that out here on Center Street? They've got a parking lot for whatever's going on in the old power shovel, and put a bunch of solar panels out there, or do we want them to come talk to us and see if there's a better place behind the plant?
Well, technically, they don't need to come talk to us if they put it on their roof or their parking garage.
Yeah, but if they put it on their roof,
So, and if you, to your point, if you're doing that, you're not putting that on the ground.
yeah.
There's just from the aspect of, there's too much opportunity for somebody to drive into it. So you put it on your roof, it powers your machines and does what you need it to do, and everybody's happy. And if you put it on the roof, we don't gotta talk to you. Now, downtown Marion.
And
may wanna
nobody's
talk
really
to
gotta
you,
see it
but we don't
either.
gotta talk to you.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think you're gonna have too many freestanding commercial ones, just because most of their lot is the building and the parking.
Yeah,
They don't have any place, to put it, so you're talking, the ones that would come would be industry, and it varies each site, how close houses are.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the New Albany site where Facebook is at, Meta and Google, and I worked 10, 15 years ago, I worked in that area to start developing that stuff. And in my opinion, if this was popular for a large scale business to do, you would see that on maps. And I'm scrolling around here and I don't see any of those companies using solar panels.
What about the is it the big, banking center there off of 23, Nationwide?
I was just at a conference there.
They've got, don't they have big, solar, under parking?
Nationwide.
Maybe JP Morgan.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, JP Morgan, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just on their parking lot,
Chase
Right.
has it on their parking garages
on their garage.
By Polaris?
at the McCoy Center.
I mean, you might want to, so are you asking if you want to make it just automatically an accessory use if it's on a roof and a parking lot? Or could that be a loophole where someone's like, okay, I'll just pave everything and then I can put it there?
I think it sounds like it's conditional use if it's gonna be on the ground for a company.
Just anything on the ground, whether it's over asphalt or grass.
Yeah, I mean, you can clearly see Chase is doing it. I mean, I don't know if you guys can see that map, but that looks like all solar right there. They're using that probably for parking. Not a huge deal in my opinion, but
They also use it for their Tesla chargers. Just saying.
and
Well, no, the Tesla I brought it up because Tesla chargers at Chase is a contentious piece. You're supposed to be on it till your car charges and get off. People don't do that. They sit on it all day. You ever want to see two old ladies fist fight, go to Chase.
So I think you guys pretty much,
I think we're good. Are we?
I think so. I think basically on the roof, it's an accessory at non-residential properties. And then on the ground, so that's the board feel.
I'd be interested because not only is it there on Chase, it's all throughout on top of their building.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested in how much electricity that actually produces.
Well, I mean, if it takes 50 acres to generate whatever the minimum megawatt is for commercial use, Whirlpool comes real close.
I mean, I guess it depends on whether they're super,
1 megawatt per 1 acre, or 10 acres? Is that the math? You said 1,000 acres they do, so it's divided by 10.
1,000 acres, yeah, I had,
So it's 1 megawatt per 10 acres.
And how many constitutes a utility?
I don't know, but when companies come in, they want 6 to 10 megawatt of power, so that's
60.
like 60 acres.
What the type of company are you talking about?
Yes, industrial companies.
So, are we ready to move on?
I am.
Okay, moving on to new business. Item 2, clerk, will you please read?
Application from Gregory Rumpel to rezone 777 East Center Street from an OIA to a C5.
Alrighty, we have a staff report.
Yeah, just come over here to the podium to discuss it. So you have staff report in front of you. It's relatively straightforward. The reason why they're requesting a rezoning is what they want to do is open a tattoo parlor. And so tattoo parlor is not explicitly stated as such within our code. We have always just considered it the same as like a hairstylist or barber shop, that sort of a thing. And so those are not listed as permitted uses in the OIA district. They first appear in C1 as a principal permitted use. And so when the applicant came to our office, we told him, well, yeah, you have to go through the rezone process, and we recommended rezoning to C5 because it's already pretty well surrounded by C5. It's right there on Center Street, which is the major thoroughfare, East Center Street. It's C5 across the road, it's C5 3 parcels over, it's C5 on the other side of the OIA district. And so that's the main reason we did that. I'm not gonna, read through the whole report, but we didn't really identify any reason to not grant the rezone. It made sense based off of the location, existing zoning around it, unless, of course, there was someone here that could bring up something, a neighboring landowner or resident.
Is that across the street from the OK?
I'm sorry?
Is that across from the OK, or is it further east?
Oh, that's a great question.
It's in the neighborhood.
Let's see, there's you.
I think it's a little further east.
It's right
It's
by our house.
down the
Right
street.
across.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, they're across from Marion Township Fire.
Yeah, exactly. It's you drive by, it's the big house that has the numbers 777 on the second story. So,
Oh, yeah, okay.
Postman can always find them. And I just realized that I forgot to delete my form notes to myself there in paragraph 12, so go me. Yeah. I did not put my references in APA format. So, okay. I see, you guys are the applicants? Yes. Okay, would you like to, or I guess, Christian, would you guys have any questions, would you like them to speak at all?
If you guys want to make any statements, you can. Just step to the podium and say your name. James, do you have a question?
I was just gonna ask, is there a reason why it was zoned IOA to begin with instead of C5?
That's a great question, and I do not know the answer to that, but you look at a lot of the way things were zoned, when we wrote the zoning map, and they were zoned to what was existing there at the time. Do you guys know what the building was before you acquired it?
Yeah, it was vacant for about 10 years. Before that, it was a mortgage company,
Okay,
and that,
so
there was
it's
only
like-
all.
So that fits with the,
Which is
within that
those
district.
I meant the whole area anyway.
The whole area,
It was just because it was office businesses.
Right, there was probably, it probably had some houses that were turned into doctors or dentist offices and,
Okay.
you know.
I was just
Yeah,
curious.
no, I was gonna say, major thoroughfares
Yeah.
such as Summer Street typically have the commercial district. They are, I think, because they're kind of a mix of housing and residential and industrial, or not industrial, but the office type situations.
And C5 will allow whatever business anyway. Right?
Yes.
So,
I mean,
is there some reason why we haven't included tattoo parlors in the code? No,
no, we could put that.
so that we could just,
They'll
whatever.
probably be at the same place though as the salons.
Yeah, hairdressers and barbershops.
Yeah.
Which would be still in that C.
Which would still start in the commercial districts. They're in R2 and R3, you are conditionally allowed to have barbershops and hair salons so long as it's along a major thoroughfare and it maintains the outward appearance of a residence, of a house.
Gotcha.
But for as far as primary use, it first appears in C1.
Sorry, that.
But no, I mean, that's something that we can also do, put forth a proposal to
Yep.
add, wherever it says hairdresser, also add the word
Yeah.
tattoo shop, tattoo parlor.
Just so that not these guys, but the next guys don't have to come in.
Right.
and-
Yeah, and I mean, if you guys are, have experience, you could maybe even, help us come up with some if we needed some language for how to, if we needed to come up with a definition for what is a tattoo shop,
If anybody's having a hard time visualizing this, what's the tattoo shop on South Main?
Oh,
Kelly?
Mhm.
Tattoo, yeah. So that's kind of in a house-like structure. There's also, I believe, a barber shop on South Prospect that looks like it's in a house.
C4, I think, district.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
at first, this seems odd to me, but then I think about Kelly's place, and I think, well, it's kind of like hidden, but it's still there.
I don't know if Kelly had to apply for rezoning, because I've talked to some people, I'm from Marion here, but I work in Mount with these folks here, with him. But, I think that he had to apply, and there were certain restrictions and stuff, because he is appointment only there and stuff, but I don't know what that was or anything, so maybe.
Before the tattoo parlor, Munn's Barber Shop was in there.
Right.
And it was the Marion County Historical Society before they got Heritage Hall. So it's probably been at least a C classification for quite a
Yeah, I
while.
believe I have it mapped here.
Okay,
That
that's
would
what
be
I was about to look
C, I think it was C4, which is the downtown fringe, because the downtown core is C3, then the area immediately around it, so we kind of.
Oh, it might be
See,
R3. Which side is?
No, I think it's,
Yeah. Oh, Main Street?
Main Street.
Oh, yeah,
Main
it's
Street, so
C4.
It's
Yeah.
C4, yeah.
C4, yeah.
Not that I memorized the map, but I do, no.
I will say-
So-
I will say I spoke with the mayor, and he sees no issues with this.
And then I do think that a citizen was interested in, maybe a neighboring citizen also wants their property zoned along with it. Now, I don't think that can happen at this particular case, but I think we might make a recommendation that we'd be in favor of spreading out that commercial district in the future, because again, it makes sense. There's probably not much difference between your parcel and two parcels that would remain OIA, so I mean, in theory.
Okay, you got a phone call from the same gentleman that called Councilman Prater?
No, I just heard him talk, but it was something we talked about as well, that since they're kind of in big chunks and that OIA is squeezed between two other C5s, there's not any particular reason anymore, but.
Is there any use that's allowed in OIA that's not allowed in C5? I can't think of any. So I think OI enters the code, and it joins up at C3.
Right.
I think if I remember
Right, so that
correctly.
you would have all the same uses you would be allowed in OIA, all the same uses and benefits that the two are. So, it may make sense to do that.
Have you guys talked to the neighbors?
not specifically about putting a tattoo shop there. But
Okay.
we had communications with the neighbors there.
So
Now you see type of business going in there in a sense.
I don't have any problem with you. I mean, I'm gonna, just so you know, I'm voting in favor of this for you guys. Yeah, I've seen what you've done to the property. You've done a really nice job of rehabilitating it. It's just, as with most of Marion, it's very reactionary. And so when they figure out what's going in there, they could have some may have a problem with what's going in there. I do not. So just to make it easier on you guys in the long run, you know, maybe kind of do like a soften the ground a little bit with hey, we're here. If you have a problem, you can come talk to us. We're not going to be
Free
pretty sure you're
tattoos.
going to do anyways, but you know, we're not the boogeyman. So besides that, and I mean, there's obviously nobody here to voice concern against you. The other thing is, not that it will affect the vote, but do you guys have pretty much your hours of operation figured out, and you're going to be just as respectful as you can
Oh,
to the
yeah,
people
it's
in
not,
the...
it's not be open past midnight or 3 a.m.
Right.
But
So
then again, the OK is open.
yes, that...
You really want to hear that?
Yes, the okay is,
Right now, hours of operation are 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., so.
yeah, that's not...
We're all like, we all have family. We want to get to home to our family. You know, I feel like we're pretty stand-up people, you know, so, in that
Yeah.
way, people speak well of us, and so does the stuff like that, they stay behind us, and, so to me, it's like, I want to be respectful to the community, I want to offer value to the community, so to me, I think, for me and Bernie, we try to separate ourselves, you know, and I think you do too, from some of the tattoo community that is like more oriented around like riffraff and just maybe drugs and parties. So like, I don't really get with all that. I'm really particular about who I tattoo, who I take on as clients, and because I want to put out good energy into the world, and so that's how I kind of.
So is this an extension of an already established business that you're bringing to Marion?
Yeah.
Or is it
Oh.
like a brand new shop that's
We
in,
have a shop open and running and stuff like that.
That's
Now
cool.
already, and we would want to move to Marion.
so you want to move here and be here instead of Mount Gilead, or, okay.
Correct.
Economic development.
There you go, I like it.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I do. I want a motion to approve.
I second.
Will you, clerk, will you take the vote, please?
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Dunstan,
Yes.
Ms. Russell,
Yes.
Director Bodine.
Yes.
I do want to note that one of the property owners in the surrounding areas, we kind of were discussing over here, called my office earlier today and was not happy. Apparently, he tried to get this area, or at least his properties, rezoned.
Mhm.
Once before, it sounded like it was back in the 80s or 90s.
Okay.
And the planning commission at that time said no, and
Well, that's why we rotate every 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I was
Most of us weren't
in the
very
80s,
old.
in 80, I was 4. So,
I told him he could come to the meeting and talk to us. He could come to the city council zoning committee and talk to them. He could come to city council and talk to them. When I told him I would mention it to the committee, he was happy because he did not want to come. So,
yeah.
but as Evelyn said, that may be one of those situations where we look at the area and make a recommendation to rezone the whole thing at some point.
You don't.
Yeah, so just so you guys know, it's not, final yet, it has to, it's a legislative change that has to go to city council, but now that they voted on it, city council would need a supermajority if they wanted to vote differently than this group, so.
Now, I got good news for you, because I knew this was coming. I already got the public hearing scheduled. I believe it's the 28th of April. So council is still going to have 3 readings on it, but the public has already been notified this is coming up. that public hearing will happen, and once it's over, it's downhill from there. Or uphill.
And unfortunately, this is all baked into the Ohio revised code, so it's just how it.
But it helps if somebody like him is awaiting, because you can do the notice of the hearing early
Yes.
versus station to station.
And I was able to put,
Hearing in like August.
and I was able to put several of them together. So, yours came in with like the 5 zoning changes we have coming through. And I had 2 vacations that were coming up. Hoyle Street is still floating around in committee, but it was merged in with Evans Road, so it saved money on the ad. And if they ever happen to get Hoyle Street into council before the 28th, they can do the public hearing then too.
I feel like we're getting a lot accomplished, I mean, given the amount of things that have come through this commission in the past year.
I'm waiting to hear the people that are doing the recodifications yell at me for sending them more stuff.
Anything else to come before this planning commission?
James, you wanna?
Okay, my next, I'll get back up there.
Sorry.
Do they have the report or I need
Yeah,
to pass
did-
it out?
No, I did give that to them.
Okay, so, I came up with this, little staff report here dealing with, the issue of
Thank you, guys.
because everyone's, of course, is very, very interested in parking.
I love parking.
Right, I mean, who doesn't? Yeah, okay. So,
Only with solar panels on it.
Solar panel parking.
so there's a whole chapter in the code dedicated to parking and loading zones. Most every code has them, and if you look at it, it was done at a time when, in recent, with people who were writing the code, they had in their recent cultural memory, you could think of like, you look at the aerial shots of downtown Marion back in the day, and there wasn't any white space on the map to be had. It was rooftops everywhere, and then all of a sudden, middle of the 20th century, everyone's buying cars, and they're going, oh my God, I got place to park, and people were double parking, and people were parking in no parking zones, and so they're like, I know how we can solve this. We're going to create parking mandates that if you're going to build a business or build anything, you're going to have a certain amount, you're going to provide, through the private party, you're going to have to provide a certain amount of private off-street parking associated with said business. And so what's kind of, transpired now is we're kind of at the other end of that pendulum swing, where now you have just vast oceans of asphalt that oftentimes sit very underutilized, to the point where there's been advocacy organizations pushing for reducing or even fully eliminating parking minimums as kind of a, viewing it as an unfunded government mandate on private business. And the kind of the concept is, so say you require X amount of spaces per 100 square feet for a coffee shop. It's really hard to say what that coffee shop's actually going to need. It could be a total flop. It could be a thing where people just kind of trickle in and out throughout the day. It could be a massive success like that where they end up filling the place up and massively overflowing that. And also, when we started the Strongest Town thing, the first round was a category-based round, and for whatever reason, they put us in the right-sizing parking policy category, and we lost out to, I think, Sacramento, who had already fully eliminated parking minimums from their entire zoning codes. I was like, okay, we're not going to compete with that. But even like around the office, Ken and I were talking. Like, you're talking, specifically like drugstores, like how many parking spaces they have versus how many people at one time are ever going to a CVS. That even if we didn't want to get rid of parking minimums entirely, we could probably look through the code and say, you know what, that is a bit excessive here or there. And so I came up with this, I took Evie's model of most strict to least strict there in paragraph 2 to kind of give some ideas for ways of thinking about the potentially amending the parking chapter within the code to make it a little more market-based as opposed to just hardline code driven. I think the prime example I would point to is even in downtown, which is the only place where we do not have parking minimums, most places, if they can get it, do choose to have a parking lot for their customers anyway. So there you can kind of see the market forces just naturally driving the proper amount of parking that someone might need. And if we're requiring more than people need, that becomes a cost to the businesses or to the home builders or to the apartment builders, whomever, and it becomes more impervious surface, and it becomes more land that's being utilized for not taxable, not something that doesn't really build any tax value base, but still requires the same amount of infrastructure to serve, and further spreads things out, requiring, a mile of sewer is a mile of sewer, whether it's serving, 20 homes or 200 homes.
Technically, it requires more infrastructure than the building does.
Yeah, especially if you're in a dense area where you can't, if you're, the YMCA put in all these little, they're not ponds, but they're low areas for water retention on property. But if you're here in town, you don't have space for that. You're putting in underground storage tanks for your stormwater runoff on your parking lot. And so if we could give people the option of not having as much parking or reutilizing parking for potentially housing, apartments, expanding their business, what have you. Imagine going back to that coffee shop example. If you have this coffee shop and it does end up being massively successful and you want to add on to your dining space, well, you just increased your square footage, and so therefore you also have to add another 3, 4, 5 parking spaces. So if you're already filling the lot, what are you going to do? Are you going to knock down the business next to you? Are you going to not expand? Are you going to have to move and find a whole nother site for your business just because you want a little bit bigger dining space? It just gives people more flexibility. And so the examples that I gave you, I'll go ahead and read them out loud. So for most strict, I kind of, just for hyperbole sake, a little bit of hyperbole, but also just to establish the extreme frameworks, we could increase the parking minimums if we feel like there's not enough parking spaces for businesses and we feel like there's an issue, or we could just maintain everything as it is, going down, to a very moderate. We just kind of go line by line and ask ourselves if we want to change anything. A little bit under that, currently our parking requirements are just based strictly on use, regardless of zone. So I'm putting forward the question of if C1 is called neighborhood commercial, would a neighborhood commercial establishment require the same ratio as a general citywide business district? Whereas in a neighborhood, you would probably have a lot more clients walking, parking, biking, using transit to get there versus something that's serving the whole city, like the Kroger on the south end, where almost everyone's going to drive. Another thing to think about is eliminating parking minimums on some or all residential. Currently, we require 2 off-street parking spaces per unit until you get above 3 units, and then every unit after 3 units is 1.5 parking spaces. Looking at some studies, the actual usage actually ends up being a little less than 1 parking space per unit most of the time. I would imagine even in Marion, it would be not much over 1 based on a lot of apartments. And then the least strict would just be to remove them entirely. And a suggestion that I put in here towards, paragraph 8, or section 8 there, if we wanted to eliminate it, you could potentially just write it so that if you reduce or eliminate these minimums, make it give it a sunset. Give it like a year or something, see what transpires, see if it creates issues, and then if people like it, make it permanent. If people think it has issues, tweak it or get rid of it entirely. You lost nothing. And then, because I'm a nerd, I've included at the end several different resources about some of the negative effects of parking. This guy, Donald Shoup, he just died recently, but he was kind of the first person to make this issue something that mattered. He wrote a book called The High Cost of Free Parking. Like you pointed out, it's a drain on infrastructure to have parking that's underutilized. And as we all know, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Someone is paying for it one way or another. So that's the summary of this report. I see, Christian, you have a question?
I just have a real quick question. So, just so I'm clear, are you talking about parking in the city or parking in downtown Marion?
The whole city.
The whole city?
Yes.
Okay.
There's already zero minimums for downtown. If you like, when Mike's sandwich shop opened up, he didn't have to go and buy the old real estate building next to him and knock it down for parking. He could just open his sandwich shop. He didn't have to worry about, having X amount of parking spaces. But if he opened that half a block further south, he would have to make sure that he had enough parking spaces.
Right, so for instance, that C3, which I kind of talk about as the core, it's the area where the buildings are at zero lot line, right up to the sidewalk, and built before vehicles are a thing. That doesn't require any parking at all. Once you get into C4, which is the downtown fringe, which is just that step beyond, like Munn's Barbershop or where the tattoo was, where you're down.
Boyd's Funeral Home.
Boyd's Funeral Home. Those are on the C4, so they automatically start to need parking. Everything else, whatever, it's a zoning district, has to have parking, with the exception of only the C3.
Right, so that lot that's one lot away from the C3, but it's in the C4, would need the same amount of parking as Kroger way down, on the outskirts of town. currently based on.
So, just also, still a parking question.
Yeah.
What is defined as downtown Marion? Like how do you define downtown Marion, like geographically? Like
Right.
from
For
what
this
street to what
purpose,
street
yeah,
to what
we would,
street?
for zoning, we would classify downtown as C3. And so on this map, you can.
No, I mean, like, is it from center to main?
I can
Is it
can I
from?
show you the map or?
Is it the Dora?
It's just this, no,
it's a little bit beyond.
it's just this green patch right here. This is,
So this green patch right here,
that's
Yeah.
C3.
That's the only thing that's.
is
The green.
we would define this as
Right in the middle.
downtown Marion.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, for zoning wise, we've done that,
Yeah, so
define that
only
as
the C.
central
only this
business district,
green
which is
doesn't
downtown.
And
need
it's not
parking,
even
everything
So
else.
then-
The Dora's bigger
That
than
being
that.
understood, what would
Dora
you
goes up to
say-
George Street.
Everybody's gonna have a different opinion on this.
Did you know that?
What would you say the average citizen of Marion says is downtown
I know
Marion?
there was
In this thing, would it be,
The Dora goes
we
up to
expand
George
it out
Street.
to where these
Yeah,
cross
the
streets
door,
are?
the door is.
Yeah, I would think
it
the
just-
average citizen.
it has
would,
nothing to do
when
with
you're
the
thinking of the
C3.
cultural definition of downtown, would probably be C3 and most of this adjacent C4, that sort of thing, maybe even.
So, the reason I'm
This will make
asking
my job
is because
easy.
what if a person said,
But I need to get you the updated door.
I wanna get rid of cars?
Yeah, because I'm getting ready to mark it.
Completely
Mark what?
from that area.
Dora.
I don't want them parking there, I don't want them driving there, I don't want buses going through it. I
was about
want,
to say the only
I
one
want
I've
that
seen
to
is
be
out
a
here in the
complete
parking
That's the only one.
cultural
That's the only one I've ever
where you can
seen. I'm
walk,
like,
ride a bike,
40 of them.
whatever, but you cannot drive a car
It
in
might
that
be
area. You
changed
have
now
to park
since
outside of that area and walk.
So it's changed since.
That would be a massive change that
I
would
was
have
saying
to.
Norway.
Be like a-
Yeah, no, that would be a massive change
Yeah,
where
you
you'd be
face it some
completely
serious-
adjusting all of those city-owned right-of-ways
sidewalk.
in that area.
Oh, they
and
wanted that
I
in
just, first, I don't
I
see
don't
any
think they
demand
wanted
for
that,
that
but
right
I'm
now.
telling you, it
There's
goes up
some
that far.
discussion about maybe temporarily or permanently, some people want to pedestrianize that one little block of Main Street, whatever. But I don't see any demand for that right now, and if there was, if someone did want to do that, it would have to come before this board, just like any, it wouldn't be like a vacation, but it would be.
What about it?
It would, kind of like, remember when, Alex Sheridan came here a few years ago because he wanted to extend the sidewalks?
And we gave him 6 parking spots to do it.
Right,
Uh-huh.
he wanted
I
to
don't
change
want, but
the city
We need
right
to
of
do
way,
that again.
all of
They're
that
expensive.
process, just
Because
to
Ralph Smith brought it up.
adjust from 6 parking spots
Whatever.
to
What,
5
Louisiana?
sidewalks.
Is that where it happened?
would have to take place for any place where someone wanted to do something
But like the mayor
like that.
this morning, we need to do something about security here during council meetings.
Just said no.
What?
Nobody goes through.
He said it would be very hard.
No, he said no.
I'm saying,
Stop thinking about
so what I'm saying is,
Council needs to grow a pair.
just to piggyback on
And
a
start
few things
controlling things
tonight,
better.
and I didn't want to make any motions, but
Come down here at 7:00 while we're in here.
the whole time I've been here, the thing that has been not beat into me, but drummed into me is that we do not like spot zoning.
Right.
Period. Regardless of where it is or what the purpose is or whether we think it's the greatest thing in the world. We don't want a spot zone. We don't want to turn one lot into something else that has nothing else going on with that lot. So,
You just did that with the tattoo place,
I
didn't
know. But the reason I'm bringing that up is if there's other people in there who say, we want to be the same thing, we should just say, you're the same thing. Way to go. So, I mean,
Can, to amend that, application, or can the city initiate its own?
So zoning, a planning commission can initiate zoning recommendations.
I'm saying if you have people who have voiced a concern that in the 80s, somebody who probably is no longer alive voted against them, and it's going to be an issue, and we as a planning commission, and I'm only speaking for me, don't have a problem with other people being zoned the same, because it sounds like it's only going to be 1 or 2 places, 3 places. Fantastic. It brings fluidity to the whole thing.
The guy gave me 3 addresses.
So, but it goes back to, it stimulates development when people understand what's there, which also goes back to, I understand the parking thing that I brought up would be almost impossible. But if you make the footprint larger for downtown Marion, and you dictate that downtown Marion is a walking zone, you will, I promise you, you will see people who have not considered coming in because of the the raceway that is Center Street,
I'm working on changing that.
come in and say, I have an opportunity to start a business here. Even if I go a little bit further out, I'm still going to be in the know. I'm still going to be in the flow of what's going on.
Walking distance, or
And the 2 things, and if we don't do this, then fantastic. It's not going to kill me. But the 2 things that are driving this thought in my head are how successful Norway has been with this whole thing, when they had like almost revolts when they closed their downtown to anything other than city transit. And every single photo I see of Marion online from the 40s and 50s, every single one, there are people out walking. They are walking up and down the streets. They're with their families. There's little kids. I'm not seeing that now. Even when we have things that have been developed that are going to be very family friendly. We want to get people down here. But if you come down here and you have to risk, just because of the way it is, your child being hit, you're gonna think twice. But do I want to come down here to the ice cream shop down here? Or do I want to go to Dairy Queen and stay in my car? Or do I want to go to the Jersey and I have a designated parking area?
And a guardrail.
And a parking area.
Yeah.
So,
To your point, I don't know if this is what you're thinking, but have we, or why the city doesn't have like the pedestrians have the right of way walkways with lights and stuff, anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue, and I think you're working on.
Is that what you're
is
working on?
traffic calming and making it more pedestrian friendly.
and yes, and just to piggyback, and I know I bring this up every meeting, you guys are probably tired of hearing it, but I grew up in Troy, as everybody's well aware.
God's country.
Oh, Troy, I know you're from Troy.
Yeah, I know, I don't talk about it very much. One of the things they did about 5 years ago that you thought people would revolt, but now they love, is the only thing that is open in downtown is the roundabout. And the only reason the roundabout is open is because it's always been open and it's the square. But every other access point and parking location in downtown Troy has been scrubbed from the map. And it is a walking thoroughfare, and it is amazing how there are no stoplights down there because you're not stopping. You're going through. You're going through, and they've put planters in the middle of the crosswalk to make it very, very, very aware. You have to stop for people crossing the street. They're not stopping for you. So I've seen it work in firsthand, and I believe in Marion enough to say we can be one of the, not a hidden gem, but one of the best things that cooking in this state. And we can take what people have been talking about. Oh, this, when you say Marion, you see the look on their face when you say Marion. I mean, I've wanted to punch a few people from Delaware.
I don't know, were you in the comment section on the live stream yesterday?
So-
Those people were saying Marion.
So, I
think
believe
it's changing.
What?
I think it's changing.
It is changing.
But
It's,
I would love to visit Troy, and I think I'm going to now that you said that,
get ready.
because
But don't go this weekend. They're flooded. They're underwater. So,
ain't nobody walking it.
Take a canoe.
so,
We
yeah,
did that in Prospect.
they're underwater. They're all pumping like what they're doing for their groundwater research, and it's just like, bro, you're calm down. But it's, and I believe Mike when he says it is changing, and it is, but for me, it'll change faster if people actually see that we're investing in something and that we're including them in the investment and not just certain individuals. So when we do traffic, when we do sidewalks, when we do this, it's important that when we plan these things, that the citizens of the city see, this is for you. This is, like, I get nothing out of this. I'm free. I'm volunteering my time. But this is for you. This is what, we're here to do this for you, to make it better for you. And I believe that they are starting to see that. I believe that they are, because there is people who may have been salty, who are not as salty as they
Do you
used to be.
realize that is my entire job, is to just try to make this city better for everybody that lives here?
So,
And, I mean,
Yeah, we got.
I think when you start having that conversation about parking, you start including that conversation about how do you make your city more walkable, which we are doing,
Yes.
and pedestrian friendly, bike path friendly, leisure path, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
We're doing that. It's taking time, but quite frankly, we've evolved more in the past year and a half than the city has quite. I mean, the fact that a lot of this, what is available as far as grants goes, couples with that kind of thought.
Right.
And that kind of thought of expanding your downtown and making it walkable. That's what these grants are for. We're not getting grants to build new sanitary sewer on Barks Road. We're not getting grants like that.
I mean,
We're
I
getting
just-
paths, we're getting parks, and we're taking advantage of all of it.
Unfortunately, we already have a lot of the technical stuff done, because in the late 20-teens and whatnot, my predecessor, Robert Morris, you guys with him got the active transportation done with tool design, very, high up engineering firm. You got safe routes to school done. Granted, some of the schools have changed, but a lot of them haven't. In fact, God, I was just thinking about it this morning because, I took those plans and took them to the Transportation Coalition to see and I made a spreadsheet, and I was like, because I'm a nerd, and the place that was on both plans, that was high priority on both plans, was Center in Maine. It was high priority for active transportation because of the businesses. It was high priority for the safe routes to school because of the amount of walking to go through town to get to Grant or to get to, then there's the Withrow Academy here. And then just this morning, major accident shut it down, right?
Yeah.
And if I remember, I think they said a car flipped over. Is that accurate, or am I imagining that?
I,
It was bad, right?
I did not see it. My wife told me that there was a bad accident.
Yeah, I only got it on the alert from the sheriff's office, so I didn't
Right.
get any details.
Right. Now, the highest speed limit at that intersection on any approach is 25 miles an hour. The only exception to that is South Main Street, where it's 15 miles an hour. So in theory, if you're having a crash at 25 or 15 miles an hour, it should be a fender bender. Even if there's a pedestrian involved, they might have to go to the hospital, but they'll be fine. But obviously, that's not what happened. So what you're talking about is spot on, that we do need to look at how we redesign things. In fact, I think what you're alluding to is something that kind of gets called tactical urbanism, where you go out and you try a small fix to something with paint or cones or what. Oh, you just
That's
said
what
that
we
to
did
me
for
for the
the-
parking, the diagonal parking.
We did that, yeah, for the diagonal parking, because the streetscape, for those of you who were here, was 3 lanes on Center Street and then parallel parking, but you were taking your life in your hands to try to parallel park because people were racing down 3 wide lanes. And so, without taking out sidewalks and spending $1 million, we could just put diagonal parking in, keep the 3 lanes at the intersections for a turn lane. And we actually had the police department and everything put out cones. We actually tried it for a morning and it worked fine, the 2 lanes.
I will tell you, a council member now is trying to get those removed.
What, the diagonal ones?
Or just the back end.
Or
Back end
It's
ones.
the back
Oh,
end.
yeah, like.
Okay,
These were
okay.
the ones over, closer, up and down,
Yeah,
pretty much the whole stretch.
we worked on that 6 years ago when I was messing around with the park.
This is one, it was over 20 years ago. 'Cause we were
Oh, yeah,
on
South
the
Main.
state.
This was, and then the south,
South
I came up with the
Main.
idea for South Main,
Yeah.
diagonal
Yeah.
parking, and worked with Jim Bischoff in the city engineer's office, and he came up with the plan. That's the way it used to be, by the way, in the 30s and 40s. They did have diagonal parking on South Main.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Well, they had it all through downtown.
Well, and, you know,
Yeah,
to your other point too, like, I was talking about it with the people at Yummy Candy Store, when, just talking to, I was there for some official or unofficial reason, and
You were there to
Yeah,
get
like-
candy.
candy, I have candy.
Officially?
Yeah. Like, why can't we get customers to come here like they do on South Main Street? I said, I literally just walked across Center Street with my kids, waited for a walk signal, and still felt like I was taking my life into my hands, dragging 2 tiny people that get distracted easily across what had been 3, nearly 4 lane widths, with people turning right on red and all this other stuff. And then walk past a streetscape that all of a sudden stops, where there's this massive parking lot where there was a building at one point, but all of a sudden I'm left in this kind of desolate void. And so what you're talking about is absolutely vital for business, whereas you look at South Main Street, especially now that it's gone to 2 lanes in each direction, I'll take my kids and jaywalk between back when Memphis was there, I'd jaywalk between the brewery and Memphis, taking my door drink to one place or taking my, brisket back to the brewery. And it was super easy, and it was super easy for me just to go to multiple businesses and lose my money. It was wonderful.
Well, I know I'm not in a business district, but I mean, I live on Duluth, and there are no speed limit signs on my street the entire way, and people speed through it, and my boys are out, playing. Like, there are no speed limit signs. So, like, I don't know,
There's
like, what kind of, and I've called.
There's a stoplight at one end and a stop
Yeah,
sign at
and
Windsor.
it's a speedway. Like, I mean, they cut through, and so, I mean, I don't know if it's just a greater problem
It is.
with
Well,
our,
so
It
yeah,
certainly
so
is.
here's the
because
thing.
I don't feel like that's, I mean, like, it's a nice little street. Like, I should feel like my kids can play in the front yard.
Yes,
but
you
I-
are 1,000%
But
right.
they cannot, and
They
that's
have-
a residential area.
They have the
No,
same problem at Warples and Lake Street.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
people want to avoid that frickin' light.
I do it, but I don't
And-
speed
and
through
they
it,
zip through there.
but I know exactly what you're
I
talking
live
about.
on the cut through in Chateau, like right there on Toulon, where if you're cutting from 529 to Barks
Yeah.
Road, and it's 1,000 feet from stop sign to stop
Yeah.
sign, and people like gun it. I'm like,
Yeah,
what are you? How much time did you just save?
yeah.
Versus if my kids are in the yard anyway.
But I'm just saying, like,
What
it sounds
you- yeah,
like
what you're
this is
talking
a,
about.
this is a
It's
bigger than
signs
just
up
So
downtown.
let me
everywhere,
put this
stop
out
sign.
there.
Or
If you
lights.
have a problem
People
where
will slow down.
10, 20% of people are
At least for a couple of
behaving
months.
contrary to what the rule is, that is a problem of deviancy. You solve that through enforcement. If you have a problem where 80 to 90% of the people are not doing what they're supposed to, that's no longer deviancy. What you have is a problem of design, and that's what you guys here have the power to do. Like, you could put forward a motion right now to say,
I want some stops, I want some speed limit signs on my street. Like, that's what I want.
Speed limit
Just
signs.
put some
Maybe
speed limit
another
signs.
thing is, if you, I'm
And
gonna
maybe
guess,
we can talk to
because
Rob
most
in
of
the
the cities
morning.
like this, parking is only allowed on one side of the street.
Yeah.
Imagine how different it would be to drive on that street if there are parallel parked cars on both sides of the street, and if someone were coming the other way, you had to slow down and maybe go over a little bit. There's actually a word for that now. They call it a yield street, where there's, it's not so crowded that you can't duck into a parking space if you
all
let
over
someone
there.
by, but it purposely slows the traffic down. Just doing that
Mm-hmm.
alone, just saying, you know what, you can park on both sides.
Well, even parking on one side. The
slows-
north end of Girard, it's
Yep.
big enough for parking and one car.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I
talk
mean,
about
all
your
those
kids.
little side streets have the double.
But
You
I'm
talk
wondering,
about kids playing in your front yard, if cars are parallel parked there, and someone's not paying attention or is driving drunk or whatever, and they veer off the road, instead of hitting your kids, they hit someone's car. Who cares? Insurance covers it, and your kids have a fun story to tell at
Yeah.
school.
Well, they can't play on the sidewalk because it's just not.
Yeah.
That's not
they can't
safe.
trust it.
We have built a world where cars are primary, and then we later think about how to accommodate people. And the conversations that we're having right now are how do we make people primary and then accommodate cars as a very useful, very important tool, but not the end-all be-all for, James, sorry.
No, you're good. I was gonna say, I don't know about everybody here, but anytime I go to another city, people are always so generous to slow down and let you cross the street. And I only feel it in Marion, and I don't know what that's about. I know that there are, marketing strategies you could use, kind of like your Hope is Marion's, right? Like that kind of thing to get people to understand, like pedestrians have the right of way in the state of Ohio. I swear, I had to tell my wife that. She's 41 years old also. She didn't know that. I said, no matter where you go, they have the right of way. I said, yeah, sure, if they jump out from behind a car,
Right.
that's
Not
their
much you
problem.
can do,
Right,
but-
that's their problem. But if you see them coming, you are obligated to slow down.
Right.
And I agree with you. I walk downtown all the time, and when I'm
It's like
in the walkway where I'm supposed to be with a light,
Mhm.
people are right up on me with their car honking their horn. Come on, hurry up, get out of my way.
Right. I've seen some people, like, how people, like, where there are bike lanes, and sometimes people will park their car in the bike lane and be like, oh, just a minute.
Yeah.
I've seen some bikers take their bicycle and put the kickstand down right in the middle of the regular traffic lane and look at the drivers behind, like, I'm just gonna be a minute. But that's neither here nor there. Those lanes right out there on Center Street, I can tell you this right now, they are wider than the lanes on the Autobahn where I drove as fast as 133 miles per hour.
Yeah.
What you're talking about again is a conflict. If you're driving a car, how often are you actually looking at your speedometer? Like you might be checking it here and there, because you don't want to be.
More often than not, you're going as fast as the person in front of you.
Right. You drive to the conditions. You're not actively thinking about every single aspect. If you did, it would be overwhelming because there's so much going on. You put certain things on autopilot. You're driving, and so we set an environment where the conditions are jarring. You put up super wide lanes. You put up curbs that you can take at 30 to 40 miles an hour because they're so rounded. But then you put up a sign that says speed limit 25, and so when you actually go the speed limit, you're worried about getting rear-ended because it feels so unnatural. Right. What we're talking about is redesigning the environment. And what we can do we can just trial run some things. A lot of times, what we do and feel like maybe we have to, maybe we just feel like we have to, is we put things down on paper and we have a million different studies and we solicit public feedback, and then everyone's scared of change, and so all these people show up at meetings saying, don't you take away my driving space, parking space, whatever, and then nothing happens. What other places have done that they've found successful is they'll do a trial run of something, and they'll put up like a website or a QR code for people to give feedback. And then from that feedback, you tweak it or whatever before you go digging up asphalt, pouring concrete, anything expensive, and you just do it with like paint, bollards. And then, if you make a bike lane that's lousy and everyone hates, even the cyclists, you go out there a month later with a pressure washer, you go right back to square one and you maybe try something else. So I might, maybe by the time we have the next meeting, I'll buy the book Tactical Urbanism for all you guys, and, you can kind of get ideas. A perfect example of this would be over in the MLK neighborhood, where they just called the garage and said, can we get some crosswalks? And they came out and not only painted them, put up signs, and even eventually fixed some curbs there to make it actually really nice for the sidewalks. But we need to empower people to just say, I don't like the way my street is, how can we change it? And then just to try some things.
Yep.
Sorry.
I love that. I love that. I just, maybe a way to let people know, because I called, I reached out, I emailed, talked to a police officer, and then nothing,
You call the safety director.
Are you?
I'm service.
Your service, who's the safety?
Rob
director?
Cow.
Call Mike and have him transfer you.
Yeah.
I can walk 20 feet and say, hey.
And to be honest, I know this is again sidetracked, but that was last summer. When I'm home, I'm a teacher, so when I'm home in the summer, I'm sitting on my front porch and I'm watching what's going on my street more than I am right now, But that's there all year long. But that's when I'm like, okay, I have time, I can deal with this, and then
I think we've proven that we listen throughout the changes on Kensington, the changes on Church Street, the changes on Greenwood. We definitely hear you.
I may have actually talked to them. I talked to somebody and they said, oh yeah, maybe we could just put some.
But I will tell you, we get a lot of that, because that is probably the number one complained about problem. Everybody going a million miles an hour. And that's the culture we live in.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I think part of that problem could be solved if the stop sign on Windsor Street was moved down to Cherry Street.
And put another one, have 2 stop signs.
And that's
Well, I think
such
they've got
an
one at
easy thing for us to
Blaine.
do. So if you reach out to us,
I think there's
you
one at
can
Blaine
even
and
reach
then
out
one
to
at
me
Windsor, and then
about that.
You go through
Our
Cherry and
sign guy go
Gerard.
out, put it up, and
So, my question is twofold. One, what do we as a commission got to do to get sneakers on the ground out here in the summertime? And I would like most of those sneakers to be from the surrounding neighborhoods. And the second question is, piggybacking off of your try things, how do we close the Dora for
An event.
No, I'm saying we take what is defined as the Dora and we close the streets that lead to the Dora.
there's a lot of state routes.
That would take a lot of planning. It'd be like
So
a
I'm
popcorn
saying
festival.
just to give it like a test run.
Right.
If you did it for a Saturday, how many, and you advertise you're not going to be able to cut through here.
It's going to be like the popcorn festival.
Yeah, so at least there's
Yeah.
a prototype out there to model it off of.
Yeah, but
It
so
can
people
be
come
done.
down here. So some people come down for the popcorn festival, and then like most towns, some people complain about the popcorn festival.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's closed. They're closing all the roads. How am I supposed to get to the other side of town? Well, we have these things called overpasses. But I don't say that because I'm not trying to get in a Facebook argument. But the city has been able to do things that, while yes, it does inconvenience your routine, they don't close off the town. They're not CSX. So
Thank you.
Circles is a square.
You can still get through.
So, what I'm saying is,
It just takes an extra 2 minutes.
if I want to be, and just as me, if everybody's like, no, I don't want to do that, I'm fine with that too. I want to be proactive enough to where we are trying things for, like you said, a short time, not even a whole weekend, a day.
Yeah.
A day to see
The door
if
day.
there is something here that can be worked on in a larger fashion. Because if it's a day and it's dead, well then that's going to be a pretty good sign that either one, we didn't get the word out, or two, nobody wants to do that.
They closed off where the ice cream shop is or was, and that whole little, I remember they did a whole thing and the whole block was closed off and everything was.
Third
closed.
Thursday.
Third Thursday.
Well, this was before that, because I've never been to Third Thursday.
Oh,
This
we did,
was I know.
a better
I'm
block.
sorry, we had
Yeah.
worship practice on Thursday.
So
But it was like a little thing, and it was so cute, and everything was open. The brickyard was open. They had like a little, I mean, I guess if that's their Thursday, but this was like on a Saturday. And, I mean, it was very enjoyable.
I think that we as a commission are in a very interesting position because we have the ability to make suggestions that are gonna anger people with, and not suggestions to anger people, but suggestions that will anger people. And because we're not elected, there's gonna be anger, and we're gonna talk to them, and we're gonna talk it out. But the elected officials are gonna have cover because they can literally say, that's a city planning commission thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically, stop, please. Yeah, I mean, another example, traffic calming is the boulevard, going from 2 lanes to 1 lane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would go on the boulevard with like 35, 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And there'd be somebody passing me at 55.
Yeah, but when it was 25, that was a little crazy.
Yeah.
And 1 lane, yeah.
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 So, I mean, for downtown, the idea is that some of the lanes, reduce some of the lanes, possibly some more sidewalks, there's design things, I think you're working on that.
Maybe what
James
you
has
could
come
do
up
is
with some
Bring your
ideas.
ideas here
And
for this
then,
group to look at.
On the west side, there's no reason that Center Street couldn't be 2 lane. I've drawn up some plans, for that. And to have Orchard go down, or, right-hand turn down Orchard. So the people from the west side don't have to go all the way around. If they wanna go to Bucci's, right now, they gotta drive all the way around to get to, they could drive in, they could drive it out. Now, if they're still going to Walmart from the west side, they're just gonna go down Church Street.
Well, I know that.
So, I mean, you can do some of this stuff, at least for that area, it's 4 lanes, but people are only basically using the right 2 lanes. So that can be done. There's different things that are possible. Having a bike trail going out to tall grass could be done. And that would be a destination. But you really gotta look at Marion as downtown as a destination versus a cut through. And as far as the drivers, I will say on one hand, we have a lot of courteous drivers, very courteous drivers that will let people come in if they're pulling in. At the same time, be careful pulling out of Union Street here, because I have seen people go through the red light at Oak and hit people out here. And I was on, about 3 weeks ago on State Street, parked at a red light next to Heritage Hall in the left lane, and the light turned green, and this was about 4 or 5 seconds after the light had turned. This car came down Church, right through the red light. I mean, it's like they're was in a daze or on drugs or something. So, I mean, you gotta be, unfortunately, that's still a situation too. But if you look at each street and look at what can be done for the designs and what the city has done, for example, in the residential area on Church Street, that is, the traffic flow is completely different. There's people who go down there like 50 miles an hour. If you were going 35, there'd be somebody on your bumper.
It feels leisurely now when you go down there.
Yeah. So it's
Down
something-
Church Street, like, I haven't been down Church Street in
West,
forever.
East Church Street.
Like
Yeah.
going past the library?
Yeah, past the library traffic. That used to be, people go down 40, 45 miles an hour.
There's a couple of stop signs in there that slow them down quick.
Yeah, I haven't
Well,
been down there.
you think about it, especially these downtown streets. I mean, they were originally US 23 and US 30. They were designed the way they are because they needed to carry basically a freeway's worth of traffic through the city all day, every day. And then now US 30 is routed up there, it's finally a freeway. US 23 is a freeway on the outside. So now we have all this capacity for an obscene amount of cars with a fraction of the amount of cars it's designed for. So of course, they're going to be speeding.
But those original routes were 2-way. And I think that's still.
That's why they made the one-way coupling.
Well, but that's still one of the biggest problems we have that drive people nuts. We've got so many one-way streets around here, and we've never addressed that as a problem. And for years, the traffic commission, Church Street's one way so far. To get around, people started going up and down Vine Street. So we changed Vine Street to one way, going the way nobody wanted. And well, now to get back around, they start going through the alleys. They start making the alleys around there one way, and then they start barricading them off.
I think that's why you get some, uncourteous behaviors, because they're already doing the workaround, just to try to get from A to B. And
That's exactly what my street is, from
People are just responding.
Prospect to Bell Fountain.
Yep.
Like
Would
that's-
you like a plan for how we can start reversing one-ways and reverting them back into two?
That is too difficult because the block length's too short.
Well-
But we could do 2 lanes, again, 2 lanes on West Church would be easy. You've just got 2 traffic lights to deal with. You don't have to spend millions of dollars changing the curbs.
But the question is ODOT gonna let us?
I don't think there'll be a problem with that.
We gave them a street, there we go.
Yeah, yeah. Just gave him the street.
Well, it is part of a state route, that's why I'm asking,
But I
because
think the city has control, or large, I don't know how that works.
I don't know, because I know it was discussed when I first got on council, and we were basically told it ain't gonna happen.
Well,
It
this
won't
part,
let us, but-
this part would be very difficult because you got short blocks and you messed up the street with the streetscape. So you can't, you can't have left-hand turn lanes or right-hand turn lanes both ways. You don't have the room without spending, multiple millions of dollars to take out storm drains, lights, curbs.
Well,
There
but
are sidewalks that Christian's trying to get people to get out and spend their
Well,
money
I mean,
on.
just simple things. One of the things that we asked, because, while they were working on the overpasses, they made the other overpass 2-way. Why can't both overpasses be 2-way?
It's so busy for no reason.
I mean,
And there's
it solves the problem with the popcorn festivals in town, because instead of being able to get through town via State Street, you gotta go all the way around to Leader Street if you're coming from the north. But if State Street's 2-way and Prospect's 2-way, it doesn't matter which way you're going, you're able to get where you want to.
If you do something like that, you're gonna have to redesign the whole downtown. You're gonna have to, not only Prospect and State, but Center and Church, that would be really a major, there are successful streets in cities that are one-way. I've seen them in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. You can have a one-way street as long as people aren't racing down it. And the lanes aren't too wide, and that are still successful commercial areas. And again, you can't, if you've gotta look at the block length. Right now, in fact, sometimes you could be backed up on, even though it's one way, you could be backed up on East Center at State, waiting for the traffic to clear between State and Main. The trouble is when you make it 2-way, start adding
turning
motions, and you can't turn if somebody's coming toward you all of a sudden. I mean, that's why it used to be 2 lanes one way, 2 lanes the other, and not, but you don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
So that's why you go with Christian's idea, just banning cars completely.
I was gonna say, you just block it all up. That sounds like it'll be easier than.
It kind of does.
But you do have it on West Center, you can have 2 lanes going one way, you can have a median, and you only need 1 lane going, east, because it's not the main road. The main Route 95 and Route 309
Are on Church Street.
Columbia's
east is Church Street.
You know where I need to build my parking garage for this new.
Anyway. So yeah, parking, do you want me to, do anything with this, or you want to?
Oh, can I just say one thing on parking?
Please, yeah.
How about homework? Just go around, when you're driving around town, look at different parking lots and see if there's too much space. What you're gonna find out is most of the excess space is in Marion Township and Clarendon because of bigger parking requirements, like in front of Menards, for example, or maybe in front of Walmart. In the city, it's some of the drugstores, like where Rite Aid, the two Rite Aids. I believe CVS, I think we gave them a variance on the one on, Delaware Avenue.
That
In
one,
Washington.
that one doesn't have a huge parking lot like the other ones do.
But it's got enough.
I was gonna say, is it too small?
No,
No.
I think it's fine. You notice that it's parking lot is because that's the pharmacy we have to use.
I never have a problem finding a parking spot
Yeah,
there, and
yeah.
there's rarely people in the store. But they do get a constant flow of customers because of the location.
But the Rite Aid that where the fire department's going, that one had like
I don't know what
three
that
times
street
as
is,
much
but
parking.
where
Also the
Delaware
one
Avenue
on,
and State Street split.
Richland Road.
They turn it into
Oh.
Main Street
Vernon.
on
Yeah.
State Street. So we're on
Mhm.
the west side of the street.
Yeah.
It's been there so long, you've probably forgotten.
Yeah.
So what
So I-
happens to that space though, like hypothetically, like,
That's why, I think in the city, we have, in the zoning, need to tweak the pharmacy, and drugstore.
He's referring to, it's not gonna change existing, what's there. We're talking
It's like
about
new stuff.
requirements for new stuff when they
Right, it
build.
could though. Like, so say you had, what's a big parking lot that's inside the city limits? Let's do the shopping plaza, where Red Lobster is, because that is in the city limits, and that's a, kind of quintessential example. I mean, how many people are going to the Salvation Army and Planet Fitness on a regular basis? Like, a lot.
Planet Fitness, a lot.
Okay, sorry.
The real area would be from Dunham's.
Yeah.
I guess till
Yeah.
probably.
Right.
The Boy Scouts.
Yeah,
Boy
if you
Scouts.
could look at them and say, you know what, if you don't feel like you need this much parking, we're not gonna require that much parking. They could put another business in there, they could put some apartments in there, and all of a sudden you've got some mixed use, something like that, and we need housing, we definitely want
Apartments are from the
businesses.
shopping mall.
You can't tax a parking lot, it's just a parking lot. So, it serves the business, but it's not a business.
Yeah, that'd be a good example, because we did allow Burger King to go in there, and Red Lobster, and then you'd be able to allow maybe a few more.
Understand that.
That'd be a good example.
Yeah, or, like you said, the Rite Aid that's gonna be a fire station.
If they had wanted to expand and make a bigger store there.
Right.
or like
use
where
that
Big
for
Lots is?
Huh?
Big Lots, where Big Lots is that one?
That's outside the city.
Oh,
That's in the
outside.
township.
Oh.
So we could put apartments in the Coliseum parking lot, is what you're saying to me?
Yeah.
Oh, we could.
Not during the robotics thing that was last week.
At Marcus Theaters down at Crossway,
Yeah, they do.
they've got like all of a sudden all these apartments
Yeah.
in what was previously parking lot. Like,
They also have a jungle in their parking lot.
Pardon me?
There's also a jungle in the parking lot.
Jungle in the.
At Marcus Theaters,
Hmm?
have you ever been? It looks like no one's maintained that parking
Yeah.
lot for the last couple
Yes.
decades.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a literal jungle. It's a ghost
Kind of
town.
like Southland Mall.
Yeah.
Yes, the back of it.
The back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but I guess Southland Mall is a good example. It's not in the city, but if it
It
was,
is one where.
Yeah, he just.
Yeah, I mean, good night.
Nobody-
that might be an
We
incentive to
mandate
get a
free
van.
parking for cars, but we don't have, affordable housing for people.
Yeah, but that's another one in the township where years ago, I'd seen the front of that full, but the back.
Always empty.
Not even, like a.
Or residential areas, like, does every single unit need to have 2 off-street parking spaces in a residential area? You're not
That's
gonna
where it
have
gets a little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
Alright.
If you want a
Any of
family
you
to
have
live there.
Children that have teenagers.
yeah, then now once they hit.
Oh my God, once you got 4 or 5 cars and you live in the city, like, it's, what do you do with them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, my neighbor used to park the street full till the kids started moving out.
And then I got neighbors that got RV and a boat, and then they park on the street, and I've got 5 cars. It's like, we can take up a whole street, just 2 neighbors, It's a little different.
Right.
It's where it gets a little murky.
Yeah, no,
But-
we're
but-
going back and forth about that.
You could do your yield, whatever,
Yeah.
just parking on both sides of the street would help.
It would.
And I
Well,
also
it's
live
also
on a
what
street.
problem, not having enough parking is a problem.
Yeah.
Not having enough housing is a problem.
Yeah.
Which problem is the bigger problem? Like, are you willing to park your car a little further away from your house if it means that you can have an above garage apartment and people can have a place to live.
We as a society could have less vehicles, to answer your question.
Well, I don't even think that's the answer. I mean, I think just that
All
we don't need
societies
to be,
in America.
we don't need to bend over backwards as much as we do to accommodate people being able to drive up and park right in front of the door and never have to walk more than 3 steps. You know, I think a lot of us could stand to walk a little more.
I think historically, we hurt ourselves when we decided it was time to get rid of public transit.
Yeah, I love seeing what's happening with, you know, transit coming back in Marion.
I mean, with what we're doing with transit now, could you imagine how much better it would be if the interurban was still operating?
Oh, don't even get me started.
I mean,
So I was just I was late because I was coming from, they were doing an engineering talk with one of the Ohio State professors over at Bucci's, and I couldn't flag down the waitress to give me my doggone check. But we got up, I got up there because someone wanted to said something about the Strong Towns thing and how they want to, you know, get you out of your car and everything. So, you know, and I got up there, I said, so, you know, like, it frustrates me that we can't, you know, afford a, you know, $50 to $100 million is too much. We can't afford that for a light rail system to get us between Marion and Columbus, so we have to go and spend $1.5 billion to fix US 23. You know, so.
Alrighty.
Sorry, good venting session.
Oh, no, you're good. Anything else?
No, thanks.
Alrighty. Nothing else? This is adjourned.
oh, we're not adjourned.
Sorry, I have to still do that.
Second, is that it?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, are those consultants, are they gonna come to this? Or were they just in
Those
here?
Hey,
consultants
James?
that I know.
Strongtown, do you only vote once per round? Okay.
Unless you've got more than one email.
I put it in my students' Google Classroom and had them all vote with their school emails, but I was like, I don't know if you can vote more than once, guys.
I'm pretty sure I was voting.
I don't know if you can or if you can't, but I go in and I vote under 5 different
Pay a
emails.
consultant. It's the consultant I work for,
Okay,
so
okay.
I just kind of felt like,
Well, it says, because I was looking at it today, when I posted
if we
it,
get the grant,
posted it to my Google Classroom for my students to
Turn that
vote for it.
audio off.
And it said, when it selects your email, it says they're verified for only 1 vote per round. And I was like, so guys, I don't think we can do this every day. But they were like, we can keep voting, Mrs. Russell. And I was like, I don't think it'll count.
Taking your votes already.
Yeah, but that's what I was thinking.
Like, people are used to back and let's throw those out.
Yeah.
You're driving into the space, you know, James,